So the idea of morning tea with Lisa and Lee is really about giving you some connection, community, and some coping. This morning we're going to talk about emotional needs and really what they are. And Lisa's got some questions you're going to ask me, haven't you? And we're going to chat about just how each of us are dealing with that and how we can meet our emotional needs and stay emotionally nourished, given the limitations we're all working within at the moment. So maybe we can start a bit with what they are.
Yeah, can you just talk through what are actually emotional needs then, please, Lee?
Yeah, so basically emotional needs are really the basis of what it takes to stay mentally healthy. And, they are sort of like the foundations, if you like. While we have physical needs, which we all know about: water, air, shelter, food, this kind of thing, people aren't always as familiar with their emotional needs. But they are incredibly important because they're what keep us emotionally balanced. And so it would be things like safety and security, autonomy and control, attention, right, to give and receive it, intimacy and connection, which of course is a big one now, privacy, because we need a certain amount of privacy to be able to consolidate information and be able to absorb things and come up with ideas and digest information. We also need a sense of achievement and accomplishment, right? So if people are struggling with work at the moment, maybe not getting their sense of achievement there, then that could really compromise them. Also a sense of status, because you need to feel like you're of value, you have some relevancy in the community. And what's probably the most important one, Lisa, especially now, is meaning and purpose. And out of all the emotional needs, even when all others are compromised and people are going through really difficult challenges, if you can assign a greater meaning to the challenges you're facing, then it will tend to be that you'll have the resilience and find a way of moving through it. You often find people who are have a very big spiritual belief, a belief in something greater than themselves, believe in a greater cause, will tend to deal with adversity more so than someone who has no sense of meaning or purpose in their life. And if you think if we become depressed, for example, the meaning goes out of life, they feel hopeless. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if your emotional needs aren't met, what type of characteristics can you be feeling? You're feeling frustrated, hurt, dissatisfied?
Yeah, and typically, actually, it's a very good question, Lisa, is people will go on a worry cycle. They'll start to worry about things. And what happens then is the worry cycle goes into rumination, and the rumination, which is, like we said yesterday, is like unfinished emotional threads of the mind. It goes round and round and round, and it doesn't complete itself, right? And this high emotion, which comes with worry, then of course doesn't allow us to find solutions as easily as when we're in a calm state, right? So typically now, and you might have found this, Lisa, when we first went into, hi everybody, thank you so much for joining. When we first went into lockdown, and because of the prolonged uncertainty, that we don't have a pattern laid down for what is going on here, there's no prior experience of this. Of course, the essential needs that are going to be most compromised are going to be security and safety and autonomy and control, right? And connection. And so, many people might worry about contracting the virus. What does that mean? You saw it at the beginning of lockdown, didn't you, with people sort of buying certain types of food because it gives us safety. So, did you find that which need, when I talk about those, did you find was sort of most compromised with you?
I guess the control element is really big for me. Although I'm quite a sort of a flexible, fluid person anyway, but definitely having control taken away is a bit like, how are we going to deal with this? And trying to understand the boundaries, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, things like, creating a feeling of safety and control. In the current environment, if you're very concerned and your big worry is contracting the virus, so it's reminding yourself, for instance, the steps you've taken to keep yourself safe. Keeping your environment tidy and clean can be very helpful. Making a list of the things you have done to help yourself can be helpful, because then if you feel a sense of high emotion, you can go back to that list and look at the things you've actually done.
Yeah.
And the really key part, Lisa, is keeping it small.
Yeah.
Really, really small. This is what we were saying yesterday. This is not about trying to meet these needs in a big way. It's about just doing small, achievable things that will help you get these met throughout the day.
And what about security in jobs and relationships? Everybody, like, you know, a lot of people must be feeling that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the job security. Hi, everybody. Hi, Rosie. Lovely to see you. I think the thing is around job security, for example, that's really important. But again, I mean, so many people are saying this, is looking at what we can control and remembering that when you create things like structure, you give yourself a routine for the day, this can help you feel a sense of control. You know, it's when we're in a calm state, we're allowing ourselves to consolidate information, which is the privacy part, that allows us to come up with ideas often. It might be that with work, like with me, I've had to pivot in order to be able to keep bringing in income. So a lot of my stuff would be face to face. Now it's all online. And creating an environment that will allow other people to feel a sense of safety and security and connection. So I think it's the routines, it's giving yourself structure, it's allowing yourself time in the day to build in activities that will help you feel fulfilled, you know, and things that bring you some joy. These could be really small, mindful things, you know.
And what about privacy then? So if you're at home with your family, that you were saying is a big emotional need that's not going to be often met at the moment. How can somebody get a more private time?
Well, this is an interesting thing, because it could go either way, couldn't it? If you're living alone, you maybe have too much privacy. And with all of these needs, there's a sort of, there's an upside and a downside to them, if you know what I mean. So you can have too much privacy, which can leave you feeling a lack of connection, right? So, but for some people who are living with people, and maybe your kids are at home, your partner's working from home, and you can very easily find you're in each other's space. So it's being able to really put in time and have a conversation with people about how you can have some time alone. Now, if you have kids, for example, doing something like saying to them, you know, mummy needs some private time or some time just to rest, and putting something like a colourful scarf on your door as a sign to people that you're actually taking your downtime, because we can't be all things to everybody, right? And allowing ourselves that time to consolidate information and to just decompress will free up spare emotional capacity to be able to deal with all the other challenges. The issue we've got with it at the moment is the feeling of overwhelm. Exactly. And when we're in a state of high emotional arousal, of course, you can't think clearly. So you know, that privacy is really important in order to be able to achieve that emotional capacity. And this is where you might add in joyful things like, you know, some deep breathing. If you're someone that loves breathing styles, you know, some people don't love that kind of thing, but it might be you do something that's more mindful. You know, it could be a great face massage, could be stretches. We spoke about this a bit yesterday, some grounding techniques, reading a lovely book, you know, listening to a podcast that you find inspiring. So I think,
And what about a sense of achievement, Lee, as well? To sort of, you know, we really need to maintain our self-esteem.
Yes, totally. So I think this is, and also having a sense of achievement can also tie into the meaning and purpose aspect of this. So you really get a sense of meaning and purpose. If I can just sort of frame it a bit around this, you get a meaning and purpose by often learning something new, by being needed by other people, and by believing something great in yourself. So a sense of achievement could be doing something like a task that you really enjoy, that when you learn something new. It could be just a small fact for the day, learning how to spell a new word, what a new word means, learning a new recipe. And the thing with this is also what it will do is it will allow you to have a beginning, middle, and end to the task. And the reason that is important is because when we worry, there's all the unfinished emotional threads of the mind, which don't help us in terms of lowering our emotional arousal. So doing a task that you find fulfilling, which has a beginning, middle, and end, will give you a sense of achievement, a sense of perhaps you've learned something new, and also help remind yourself of what it is to complete a task, and reacquaint yourself with that feeling of completing an emotional task, if you like.
Yeah. So
I didn't say that last bit very clearly. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. It's about having goals and small goals.
Very small goals that you're able to complete easily. Hi, everybody. I really appreciate you taking the time out. Just someone's saying a question. How I'm finding my fuse is shorter than normal. I'm snappy with my husband and daughter, then feel bad for doing that. And I'm not like this. I feel like lockdown is suffocating. And you know what? That is a very normal response in terms of, that's something I've heard quite a lot differently from my private client work. And the thing there is the feeling of being on a short fuse is when you're in overload, really. And it's a case of doing what you can in the day to put in little moments where you can just lower the emotional arousal. This is what it's all about, because when you're in high emotion, then that's where we have a short fuse. We can't think straight. We feel like overwhelmed. And this is where I think also, Lisa, going back to the safety and security part, be very mindful of where your attention is going. Because if you're spending too much time on social media reading through, news that isn't necessarily been validated yet, or you're watching Sky News too much, you're reading newspapers too much, this can create a state of high emotion. And remember, the media will use words and language that are dramatic. That's the whole point of it. And I think, remember, when the words we use, the way we speak to ourselves, what we say to other people, will create an emotional response, right? So this is where we have to be very mindful when coming to the sense of security and what we're saying to ourselves and to the world and to our friends each day will matter, right? And it will help with that sense of safety, security, and autonomy and control. Does that make sense, Lisa?
Yeah, that does. Can I ask you, you were saying that we need to think that we're part of something bigger and greater than ourselves. What do you mean by that? Is it about having a set of beliefs about life, what it's all about and what it's all for?
Well, there's research to show that people, for instance, who have a religious belief in something bigger than themselves, we live in quite an individualist society in terms of it's about me and it's less about the community. That can be the case. So when you believe in something greater than yourself, you can assign a greater meaning. So it could be you believe in in the universe having a bigger plan. You believe in your family unit, and you must find a way forward through these challenges for your family, for your children. So being needed will give a sense of greater meaning. So it could be you believe in a great charitable cause. Shows that people who can find a greater meaning and have a greater purpose will be able to overcome things challenges more easily. If you want to read a book, Lisa, or anyone that's watching, that shows that in the biggest way, would be Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who was he survived 3 concentration camps, and he writes about his story, and really essentially it's about the meaning he had to find to get through this atrocity when everything else was stripped away. So it's a great book to show how we can't always control what happens to us, and this is not an easy road necessarily that some of us have to tread, but sometimes we can choose the right road. So, and essentially it comes down to what choices we make, where we pay attention, and the words we say to ourselves, and what we choose to make something mean. It's not always comfortable, but it can be worthy and value here. Feeling that there's no end or resolution to come, and a sense of hopelessness. And that's, again, not an unusual sense of an emotion to come up with. But, I think the thing is also is remembering, just because it's like this now doesn't mean it will always be like this, because that is a universal law, isn't it? That nothing stays the same. And where can you find the moments of connection that you might need? You feel that emotional need is most compromised. What could you do? What small actions could you take to help yourself? Because this is where I think this is not about competition. This is about community right now more than ever. This is about people coming together to help each other. And it's finding that sense of hope is really the thing that helps us step forward.
It's really helpful, Lee. Thank you so much. That was so brilliant.
And we'll be back tomorrow at 7:30 with more connection, community, and coping skills.
Exactly.
Any questions, anyone, you can DM me. Thank you for the hearts. That's lovely. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Right.